Family and friends of those in the building unaffected by this tragic and horrific fire. Also pay tribute to the amazing emergency services from the fire service. We have more than 250 firefighters, many of whom have been here from the beginning.
The streets of North Kensington are littered with ashes, the charred homework of a school child blown from Grenfell Tower. But the neighbourhood is also scarred by grief that will not pass for a long, long time. Mark Easton, BBC News, North Kensington.
Well, throughout the night, stories emerged of people who had escaped the tower block and watched the fire as it swept through the building. Many are now being sheltered in nearby community centres. And that's where family and friends of those who are missing are also heading, going from centre to try to find their loved ones. Our special correspondent Lucy Manning has been talking to the families caught up in this tragedy.
The air was punctuated with the sound of crying. Some have lost their home, others much, much more. They gathered outside the community centre, but the one thing no one could offer was good news. For the Shakir family, it was understandably too much.
My mum, my sister, her daughters and her husband. Yeah, they're all still in the building. Well, I don't know if they're out, I don't know, because we don't know any information.
Susan Shakir gave us this picture of her 3 smiling nieces, Myrna, Fatuma and 3-year-old Zainab. And what floor were your family on?
22nd, yeah.
And you haven't been able to contact them at all?
I phoned my sister when it was, when she was in there. All I could hear was screaming. And I was trying to tell her, get out, get the nearest fire exit. All I hear people screaming. I'm shouting my head so she can hear, you know. So even the police officer heard me shouting on the phone, you know. I really just wanted to go in there, basically, at least do something. I felt hopeless just standing there, you know. A blanket at least, let people jump out the window.
In the last hour, Susan heard news that someone might have spoken to her family. She's hoping it's true. After the panic of the night, the day brought only silence.
They're missing my brother-in-law, his wife, and 3 children. The children age is 20, a boy is 20, a girl of 16, 17, and a boy of 8 years.
Ahmed spoke to them as they were trapped.
I said, why are you not coming? She said, they asked us to stay in. I said, where is your husband? She said, he's talking to the emergency people. And then she said, everything's all right, they're coming to get us, but the heat and the smoke is coming. And I said, look, get a wet blanket, put the kids on the floor and cover them and wait. And she said, we can't do it because the smoke is killing us, smoke is coming. Smoke is coming from the doors, she keep covering it, but it's heavy. And that was the last time we've heard from her.
For those on the lower floors who did make it out and to the centre, some relief.
I woke up at about 1:45 in my living room to help me. A woman screaming, my baby, my baby, my baby, and also the sounds of chaos when police were coming through the walkway, knocking on everyone's door, evacuate, evacuate, evacuate.
We're friends and Iraqi. Told to get the hell out of there, this thing's going up.
Ed Daffin was saved by his friend Will, calling him and telling him to leave.
This smoke was so thick, you just couldn't see anything. And I got maybe 3/4 of the way, and then I was using my hands to feel against the wall, but I was actually began thinking to myself, you know, this is going to be me, I'm going to die of smoke inhalation here. And there was actually a fireman lying on the ground. And this fireman, he saved my life, to be honest, because he just sort of touched my foot and kind of led me where the fire exit was.
Ed was instrumental in raising concerns about the safety of the building years ago.
This accident never needed to have happened. If people had listened to what we were saying, what the blog was saying, what people, not just me, but what other members of the community were saying, this is an accident that never needed to happen.
Well, inside the centre, those who are waiting for news or have lost their homes are gathered downstairs in the hall. As you can imagine,
It is a fairly distressing situation at times. People are sobbing as they wait for news that at this stage will possibly not be good news. But it's also busy in there. They're getting help with housing and with food and medical help as well. They have no homes to go back to. And now it's not just the burnt out building that looms over this community, but the fear that they will hear that many more of their neighbours have died. Lucy Manning, BBC News, West London.
Well, more than 70 people are being treated at 6 hospitals nearby. A major incident has been declared. 100 medical staff, ambulance, paramedics, doctors have also been working here at the scene. Our medical correspondent Fergus Walsh is outside St Mary's Hospital in Paddington with the latest. Fergus.
Well, for the third time in as many months, London's medical staff have responded to a major emergency. The latest I have for you is that tonight 34 people remain in hospital. 18 of those are in a critical condition, most suffering from the effects of smoke inhalation. The response to this fire has severely tested London's healthcare system after what was described as a challenging and complex incident. Paramedics, trauma teams and London's air ambulance were all involved in a highly coordinated response. The key was to stabilise patients and get them to one of 6 hospitals where specialist teams were on standby.
At St Mary's, we're caring for 16 patients, 3 of whom are in a critical condition. At Charing Cross Hospital, we have 4 patients, none of whom are critical. We are continuing to care for patients who are primarily suffering from the effects of smoke inhalation.
Inhaling smoke can damage the lungs and airways and may also cause carbon monoxide poisoning. Specialist burns teams were on standby, but it's understood they did not treat any casualties. 12 hours after it broke out, a toxic cloud was still billowing from Grenfell Tower, leading to concerned residents handing out face masks donated by local firms.
People are breathing in the smoke here, and there's lots of soot, and there's also, toxic substances that have been used in the building that we're aware of.
And everywhere you look in the surrounding area are these blackened, sooty fragments. This children's playground is littered with pieces of debris which have floated down from the building and are what appear to be pieces of insulation from the outside of the tower block, and you can taste the soot at the back of your throat. Everyone's main concern is for the residents of Grenfell Tower, but there are worries too for those living nearby.
We found it hard to breathe, and we felt like we were tasting that smoke. So we don't know the damage this will have on our lungs. We have a lot of residents who are vulnerable, elderly people, people with severe disabilities, so we're concerned for them. Little children as well, children under the age of 5.
St Mary's and Charing Cross hospitals say their accident and emergency departments remain very busy. They've asked the public to use walk-in centres or their GP unless it's an emergency, allowing them to focus on those injured in this appalling tragedy. Fergus Walsh, BBC News.
Well, in the last hour, authorities have been giving an update on the number of casualties and the firefighting operation. Ben Brown was there. He joins us now from one of the police cordons. Ben, what did they say?
Yeah, Sophie, all the emergency services were represented here. They confirmed that the death toll had doubled from 6 to 12, and they said they fear that that will rise further. There's quite a number of people who are still unaccounted for. They said 68 people were taken to hospital, 10 took themselves to hospital, and 18 are currently in critical care. Now we can just show you the state of the building at the moment. There are still flames burning in parts of the tower block, and the London Fire Brigade said they are still trying to extinguish those flames that remain, and they've got many more hours of work here. They said it's very, very challenging inside. They said they have been to the very top of the building. It's 24 stories high, but they have reached the top floor in their search for any survivors. They said very sadly there are no survivors in there, but they say, managed to rescue 65 people.
Ben Brown, thank you. Well, within just a few hours of the fire breaking out, people were arriving at the shelters that have been set up here in churches, sports and community centres. They were carrying food, clothes, water. They were handing out masks to people in the street to protect them from the acrid smoke. Well, Elaine Dunkley has spent the day looking at the response of the local community here, and she joins us now. Elaine.
Well, Sophie, people are still arriving here with bags and boxes full of food and clothing. This area of London is incredibly diverse. It's wealthy, but there are also people here who don't have very much. And there are many faiths living and working alongside each other. And as well as offering each other possessions, they've been offering emotional support. People here have been hugging each other, holding each other's hands. Residents in this community have told me they've been overwhelmed by the generosity.
This church hall a refuge for those who have nothing and for those who want to give. They've been overwhelmed with donations.
Today we've been out, we've bought a load of phone chargers and we've given people the phone chargers to help them call loved ones and to make sure they're all safe and everyone knows where everybody is. We've also donated some money, we've given some money to some families. Darren withdrawed £1,000 out his account. And we've been giving families £100 just to see them over the next couple of days.
I mean, it's amazing how everyone's come out in the community, and it just shows you how people will stick together in a time like this.
And how caring people are, they've been so caring.
This hall is full of provisions, from shoes to toiletries. People are sharing their homes, others are offering their time.
I see that London is still together, and regardless of your background, I'm from Brazil, and where you come from, everybody got together. It is an amazing feeling I have. In 15 minutes, this hall, as you see, it is absolutely full of clothes, baby stuff, food, water. It is amazing.
On another corner, just moments away from where people have lost their lives and others all their possessions, there are more supplies.
Well, we've had bedding, headscarves, toiletries, everything you can think of that people might want. All the front here is food. I have kids at the local primary and secondary. Texts are coming in, new centers that are open, where else people can take donations. I happen to be nearby, so.
I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and I was taking her to school this morning, and on that road where we walked to school, there's a very, very clear view of the tower and what was going on. Fire was sort of really going at that point, early in the morning, and she understands what's going on, and so after school we came by here and she wanted to help load donations from this box into the van that's taking them on to the shelters where people are being looked after.
This is an area where there is wealth and those who have very little. People from all backgrounds trying to do their best.
This community is very strong. Obviously, it's not about who's rich and who's poor, as you can see. You'll see people with suits and people with tracksuits, just helping around and doing what they can do the best. There's also people here, whether it's from different castes and different colours. A lot of youth is involved as well, from what I can see. You can see a lot of students just running around, picking up stuff. Me being from the Sikh community, trying our best, making sure there's water everywhere, aid.
Such has been the response. Centres here in North Kensington say they now have enough supplies. But for those who have lost everything, the need has only just begun. Elaine Dunkley, BBC News.
Well, I am joined here by somebody who has indeed lost absolutely everything. Oscar Millen has lived in this tower block for 35 years. You have had a very lucky escape. You were pretty low down, weren't you?
Yes. I was very, very lucky. I was the luckiest one. I was the first person that came out from the infirmary.
How difficult was it for you to get out? How thick was the smoke when you woke up?
Well, at that moment, because it was only about 6 minutes, the fire just started from my flat below, and I actually myself, with my friend, tried to put the fire out with the extinguisher, but the extinguisher didn't work at that time. And then obviously I say to my friend, and they would try to throw some water because coming from my window, the window was quite open a little bit, and there was I had the fire was like with the wind like that, and then I tried to put it out in myself, but we couldn't because I tell my friend, listen, it's better go because there is no chance we go.
And the flames took hold so fast, didn't they?
Yes, definitely. This was so fast, and then I went for the second time. I went to my computer room, grabbed my passport. I was lucky to get my telephone as well. That was the only two things I can say from the inferno.
And outside, when you got outside, complete panic.
And then I went outside. I went through the stairs. It was still clear, and the firemen, luckily, there's heroes. They were inside the building already.
And you were with your friend. Your daughter, thankfully, was out, but you were with your friend, and his daughter, his young 12-year-old daughter, still missing.
Yeah. Because they're living up in the 17th floor. I think they're living there. And then he was lucky. He was at that moment in my house, and I don't know. But his mother was with her. And then I don't know. Her mama come out, but they say the child is somewhere, but they cannot find her anymore. And then we went out, and then I saw some firemen already in the building. They took about 6 minutes. They're fantastic, they were fantastic, very fast to coming down. But the thing I find difficult for them is there was not much access to get into the building.
Get in. Yeah.
I know maybe many people said that already, but I was one of the first ones to notice that, because all the boilers in there, they cannot move those things. It's quite thick, they're quite thick. You cannot move them, not even with a fire engine, you cannot move them.
So difficult for them to get in.
And that's the point. They lost a lot of time because of that. The fire was so quick, like a squirrel going up the tree, And it was very fast.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to us.
Okay, thank you.
Well, an emergency number has been set up for anyone concerned for loved ones in this area, in the North Kensington area. The Casualty Bureau is 0800 0961 233. That's 0800 0961 233. Now, the cause of the fire, as you've already heard, is not yet known. Kensington and Chelsea Council says it will be fully investigated and that the tower block was regularly inspected. Some residents say they had been warning about the risk of fire at that tower block, though. Our Home Affairs correspondent Tom Simons reports on what the investigation into Grenfell Tower will be looking at.
A death trap. That is what some residents believe Grenfell Tower was. Their high-rise home in ashes, friends and relatives dead, injured or fighting for their lives. They say, we told you something was going to happen, again and again. And the proof of that was not hard to find. This is a blog by the Towers Residents Association, which says, it is a truly terrifying thought, but the Grenfell Action Group firmly believes that only a catastrophic event will expose the ineptitude and incompetence of our landlord, the KCTMO, the Kensington and Chelsea Tenant Management Organisation, and bring an end to the dangerous living conditions and neglect of health and safety legislation that they inflict upon their tenants and leaseholders. It was posted last November.
We repeatedly reported concerns to the tenant management organisation of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, including fire safety concerns, which were not investigated during the regeneration works.
The tower is owned by the council. Its running was handed to the tenant management organisation in the 1990s. The complaints followed. They included concerns about this advice to residents to stay put inside a flat if there was a fire outside. There were also reports of faulty safety equipment, power surges and inadequate fire alarms. And it wasn't just the Grenfell. This is the Adair Tower. It has the same management. There was a fire here too in 2015, arson. Luckily, there was no loss of life. Following what happened here, the management was issued with an enforcement order by the fire brigade. It set out a string of failings to ensure preventative measures to properly assess the risk, failure to offer a well-marked escape route, and to have an emergency plan. People were angry then, now they're furious. Jose has lived here for 30 years. He has friends fighting for their lives after the Grenfell fire, just a mile away.
In this tower, we've had a fire. Trellick Tower had a fire. It's just happening too often.
3 towers, 3 fires?
Yeah, within a year.
And in your tower here, what changes were made following the fire in 2015?
Basically, they put signs up, which we didn't have. They changed the doors, the fire doors, which they weren't. And basically that's it.
So do you think that's enough?
No, it's not.
He's got a smoke alarm in his flat now, but he's still worried there's no central fire alarm, a concern also raised at the Grenfell fire. Council documents reveal there was a review of fire safety last year. The Grenfell was last given a comprehensive fire risk assessment 18 months ago during its refurbishment when it was covered with new cladding, a common process. So the government's ordered wider checks tonight.
We've discussed with the Department for Communities and Local Government, local authorities and the fire service a process whereby we seek to identify towers that might be in a similar process of refurbishment, run a system of checks and inspections so that we as quickly as possible can give reassurance to people.
The investigation will begin once the exhausting task of putting out the inferno at the Grenfell Tower is complete. Getting to the bottom of why it spread so fast could take months. Tom Simons, BBC News, West London.
Well, millions of people around the world live in skyscrapers. The key question, of course, is how to keep those who live in them safe. As we've heard, Grenfell Tower was completely refurbished just last year, and some fire safety experts have already pointed to the cladding on the building as a likely reason that the blaze spread so quickly.